Bree, Simulated here. Welcome to the Halloween special for 2018. It was the weekend of Halloween, and a group of friends decided to go to the neighbouring town of Forgotten Hollow for a cabin trip. The friends intended on staying for 3 days, going down on the weekend. It was a really long drive from where they lived, and once they arrived, they had some car issues. As they drove through the town, trying to find the way to their Airbnb, which was a small little cabin that they were renting out for the weekend, they saw some really frightening looking houses. They knew they wouldn't want to be walking past these houses alone at night. One of the houses even had their own graveyard, and I think that was where the final straw was drawn for some of the girls. They decided that they wanted to go ahead and head straight to the Airbnb instead of stopping off to get some groceries. The sun was beginning to set on Forgotten Hollow, but the night was only beginning for this group of young friends. As the fog settled over the town and the moths were drawn to the lights of the town square, the teens pulled up to their house. They'd finally arrived. The group unloaded their gear from the car as Willow tried to figure out what was wrong with it. It was at this point that Zeek the zombie began to feel rather quite upset about the whole situation. He felt very scared for what was going to happen, and as the moon rose over the mountaintop and lit up the area, he knew that he wasn't going to be able to sleep well tonight. Fiona the fairy was only upset that she had to wear her disguise. She was an alien fairy hybrid, and when she was in public she had to go ahead and put on her human disguise in order to not scare other people. Willow was happy to have finally arrived, but she didn't know how her mum was going to react when she had to tell her that the car was broken down. They were going to have to go ahead and find a local mechanic to look at it. All travel troubles aside, the group was glad to finally be together. Willow was still adjusting to her best friend, dating her other best friend, but she hoped that this trip would clear up some things and bring them all closer together. Everyone headed inside and claimed their bedrooms. Fiona was finally able to remove her disguise and be in her true fairy form. The group went ahead and sat in the living room after unpacking their bags and claiming their beds. They all decided that they were just going to chat and discuss all their plans and then go ahead and head to bed for the night. It was the next morning and Willow and Peter had gone outside to chat. Ever since Peter and Fiona had started dating, Willow and Peter had started drifting. You see, they had been best friends since primary school, and to be honest, Willow did have a little bit of a crush on Peter, but she never wanted to impede on their friendship in order to gain a relationship with him, so they never really took it any further than a little bit of a crush and being best friends. But Willow expressed her frustrations that ever since Fiona and Peter started dating, Fiona and her had drifted, and so had Peter and her. So she went ahead and brought it up, shared her insecurities with him, and he said that there was nothing to worry about, that they were still best of friends. As this was all going on, Fiona had headed outside to try and find Peter, and when she saw him talking to Willow and saying that they were going to be best friends forever and all that, that really upsetted Fiona. Fiona had always been jealous of Willow and Peter's relationship because Fiona could never seem to get as close with Peter as she could. Fiona didn't like how Willow was getting a little bit too close to Peter, so she went ahead and impeded on their conversation just a little bit. Willow was so frustrated because she was just trying to be friends with Peter, but Fiona had other plans. Zeek and Willow weren't the best of friends, but in this point of time, Willow had no one else to turn to, so she went ahead and vented to Zeek about what had just happened, and it made her feel a lot better. Everybody was unpacking their bags inside when suddenly they heard someone approach the front door. Willow and Zeek were inside, and Willow asked Zeek to go ahead and check the door. Zeek went ahead and opened the front door and invited all of the guests in. It was kind of weird that they'd all decided to rock up, but they seemed friendly enough. The guests had brought around a lovely gourmet fruitcake. How nice of them. Willow and Zeek tried to entertain the guests. They still weren't entirely sure who these people were, but they said that they lived in the neighborhood and that they saw that these young'uns were going ahead and staying in the cabin, and they went ahead and told them that the cabin had kind of a scary past. Ever since they'd arrived at this house, there was just a lot of tension between Willow and Fiona. Fiona started being really harsh to Willow, and they really weren't getting along at this stage. Zeke tried to tell Fiona to calm it down and tone it down, but they didn't know what it was. It was just something about since they'd arrived here, they just felt as though they absolutely hated each other. Peter was tired of the girls arguing, so he went ahead and went for a run. Whilst he was out on his run, a nice man invited him to his party on the weekend. The group had nothing better to do, so he went ahead and said yes. The group didn't know what it was about this place, but it was really hot. One second it would be freezing cold, and the next it would be boiling hot. Willow went ahead and called a mechanic. She'd found one online and she called them. They said they were going to come around right away. Coincidentally enough, the man who came when she called for the mechanic was the same guy who had been over the day before. If only Willow had known, she would have asked him to look at the car when he was here the other day. Willow asked him to be honest with her, and he went ahead and said it was going to be a couple of days before he could fix the car. He was going to have to go ahead and order some parts in because the engine was just absolutely ruined. There was no way he was going to be able to fix it within the next 48 hours because of Halloween. All the places were shut. It was the weekend, so no one was going to be able to ship the parts in time, and this town was in a pretty remote area. It was going to be at least a week before these guys could leave. Willow went ahead and delivered the bad news to the group. Even though it meant they were going to be here longer than expected, Peter tried to make everyone look on the bright side of things. I mean, it meant we got to stay here longer for a whole week this time instead of just 3 days. You know, let's make fun of this. Let's have a good time. Any of those issues, any of the pros and cons, guess what? They're gone. We are just going to have an amazing weekend. And that was when Peter decided to go ahead and tell the group about the guy that had invited them to a party that night. Despite the tension between them, everyone went ahead and got ready for the party that night. As the friends approached the location of the party, they got kind of creeped out. I mean, this place was really spooky. Zeke was a very lonely and shy individual. He didn't really like to interact with anyone too much, so he just sat in the corner and people watched. Peter and Willow could be found chatting together over by the grand piano. Will and Peter decided to go ahead and scope out the house. It was absolutely massive and they couldn't help themselves but have a little bit of a nosy poke. They found a set of stairs that led into a crazy basement. A few seconds later, the pair realized that there was something really weird in the back of the room. It was a coffin, a vampire coffin. It was at that point Willow and Peter knew that they'd been snooping a little too much, so they went ahead and calmly left the basement. It was 2 a.m, but the gang decided to go ahead and continue the party at 2 a.m. in their basement. That was all until they heard a really loud thud upstairs. Everyone went ahead upstairs to check it out. Peter went ahead and peered into the darkness out from the front of the porch, but he couldn't see anyone out there either. But there was a girl looking at him through the window of the other house. Creepy, but probably just a coincidence. Everyone decided to go ahead and go to sleep. It was really early in the morning and that noise had really creeped them out from being in the basement. They went ahead and said goodnight until the morning. Peter went ahead and reassured Fiona that it was nothing and that everything was going to be okay. Just as they were about to go to sleep, the power went out. Peter said he was going to go ahead and check it out to see if the fuse box had blown. Peter went upstairs to go ahead and wake up Zeke. He did not want to be going outside and checking the power box on his own. The guys headed outside to go ahead and check it out. Zeke was an apprentice electrician, so he went ahead around to the back of the property to see if he could see what was wrong. Peter was waiting and watching Zeke from the porch when he heard one of the girls scream from inside. Peter went into his and Fiona's bedroom and realized it wasn't Fiona that had screamed. He came upstairs to check on Willow and she was fast asleep as well. Who was that screaming then? Peter went ahead and came back outside to see how Zeke was doing. As he came outside and walked down the porch, he realized that he couldn't hear Zeke. Zeke wasn't replying to him shouting out to see where he was, and when he turned the corner he realized Zeke wasn't there. Where was Zeke? Peter went inside and tried to call Zeke's mobile, but he wasn't answering. It went straight to voicemail, so he went ahead and left him a message just in case he got it. Peter had no clue how he was going to explain this to the girls. He was really worried about his friend, but he was sure maybe Zeke had just gone off on a walk or was going to try and find something to fix the power. Everyone went ahead and got dressed for the day. They decided they were going to have to go around and knock on doors and see if anyone had seen Zeke. Fiona had been delegated the small gothic house that was right next door to where they were staying. The young girl introduced herself as Erica. Fiona went ahead and explained their situation about how they were staying here for Halloween, and Erica went ahead and said that she hadn't seen their friend. Fiona was mid-sentence when there was this strange mumbling scream noise coming from upstairs. Erica excused herself and said she had to go ahead and check on something. Fiona got tired of waiting, so she went ahead and came upstairs to see what all the noise was. Fiona realized that this girl was keeping Zeke here. He was really docile and wasn't really moving much. She attacked Erica and told her to give Zeke back. She threatened to tell the police. Erica laughed at this. She was above the law. Little did Fiona know that Erica was a vampire. Fiona went ahead and tried to use her alien powers to distract Erica, but it didn't work as well as she had planned. Erica turned into her dark form and began to attack Fiona. Fiona went ahead and sacrificed herself so that Zeke could get away. Erica went ahead and drank from her. Fiona tried to make a run for it, but after Erica had drank all of her blood, she went ahead and collapsed to the floor. When Zeke returned, they went ahead and shook hands and hugged. They were so happy to see each other. Zeke went ahead and told them that this girl, Erica, who was a vampire, had gone ahead and captured Fiona in place of Zeke. Erica had released Fiona back into the world. She'd been stumbling around trying to make her way home when she passed out in the middle of the forest. She was confused and had no idea who she was or where she was. She had no recollection of what had happened before. Fiona heard the sound of rushing water, so she went ahead and checked out the waterfall nearby. She had the strong desire to hurt someone, and in her head she saw these mental images of her hurting 3 people. Those people were her friends, but she just didn't remember who they were at this stage. Willow was really excited to see Fiona. Fiona began yelling at Willow, telling her she wanted to hurt her, that she didn't know who she was. That is the last thing Willow remembers before she blacked out. When Willow awoke, she was inside a glass box. Zeke was getting worried that Willow was taking too long, but Peter tried to tell him just to calm down. Zeke knew that something was up. Things just weren't adding up, so Peter said to go ahead and clear his mind. They could go ahead and check outside and see if they could see Willow anywhere. When they went outside, they found this cellar. It's almost as though the door had only just opened up. It was unlocked, so the boys went inside to check it out, and they really wished that they didn't. The boys confronted the trio, and Peter tried to talk to Fiona, but she just wasn't responding. Erica began to compel Zeke, and began to drink his zombie plasma. Caleb had other plans. He went ahead and began to turn Peter into a vampire. Peter instantly began to feel unwell. Both of the boys had blacked out, and when they awoken, they were in cubes of their own. At one point, the magic Erica had cast over Fiona started to wear off. It was at this point in time, Erica tried to remind Fiona to stay calm and to just think about the main goal here, which was to kill her friends for all the wrongdoings they'd done to her. It was at this point, everyone in the room realized that Caleb, the mechanic, was not really a mechanic. Before Fiona could break free from the vampire spell Erica had cast upon her, they made her do a simple yet deadly task. Erica passed Fiona a remote. She didn't know what this remote would do, but Erica just told her to go ahead and click the big red button on the remote. As Fiona pressed the button, this weird noise came from over by one of the boxes. The first box, containing Willow, started to shake. Suddenly, the box had filled with water and Willow floated to the top. After pressing the button that filled her friend's glass box as she was trapped inside with water, Fiona seemed unfazed. Something was clearly off. The vampire spell Erica had cast upon Fiona must have been really strong. Willow continued to try and swim down to the bottom of the tank to see her friends, but the pressure was too immense. She didn't really know how to swim because she'd never been taught, but she was trying to tread water for as long as she could. This whole time, Erica was going ahead and sending text messages to someone. Peter theorized that it must have been the guy who invited them to the party. Whilst they were downstairs in the basement, Caleb heard a strange noise coming from outside. He went outside to investigate when a weird light beamed from the sky. He was taken away in a spaceship. At this point, Fiona was no longer under their command. Was it possible that she had contacted her relatives to abduct him in order to try and break free? Even if Fiona was trying to save her friends, it was too late for Willow. As she drowned, Erica and Fiona watched on as her body floated in the pool in front of them. Fiona knew it was too late to save Willow, but she hoped that she could still save her other friends. All the boys could do was look on as Willow drowned in her glass box full of water. It was at this point Erica realized that Caleb had been gone quite a long time, so she headed upstairs to see where he was. As Erica stepped outside, she saw Caleb returning in a beam of light. When Caleb returned, he was acting weird. He was incredibly dazed, and Erica was just trying to ask him where he had been and what had happened. Caleb was acting really strange. Caleb and Erica began to fight. They'd left near where the cellar was and had gone into the forest moor behind the house. Caleb began to tell Erica what had happened on the spaceship, the fact that some of Fiona's relatives must have abducted him. Erica at first thought he was crazy, but then they realized that they'd been gone from downstairs for quite a while. They should really go downstairs and check up on them. Before they could go downstairs, Fiona emerged from behind the trees. She changed into her true form and then began to hypnotize them with her alien powers. As rain began to fall and the sun began to rise, Fiona trapped Caleb and Erica in between some plants from her alien powers. These plants were laced with poison, and if a human, vampire, or pretty much anybody except for an alien touched these plants, they would die instantly. She entered the room, aiming to help her friends, but as she walked in, she realized it was too late. As Fiona approached Peter's glass box, she tried to break it down, but it was too late. Before her eyes, Peter began to fall to the ground. Fiona rushed over to Zeke's glass box as well, just after watching her partner Peter pass away. But when she arrived to him, it was too late. She couldn't break it down in time in order to get him out before he starved to death. Fiona was so upset, but mostly she was angry at those vampires. As she came outside, she realized the rain was holding up and the vampires were about to pass away very soon from sunlight. She realized that Caleb was pregnant with an alien baby. Her family members must have impregnated him when they abducted him. Fiona had no choice but to save him for now. As soon as Erica had passed away by sunlight, Fiona went ahead and let Caleb out. She built a fence connecting all three of the glass boxes her friends had died in and left their urns on the inside so he could be reminded of the death he had caused. Fiona laced the ropes of the fence with the same poison she had before. There was no way he would be able to get out. Fiona was going to leave him there and watch him suffer until he eventually gave birth to this alien baby, which she would claim as her own and then leave him to die. Whilst they were waiting for Caleb to give birth, Peter's ghost came out from his tombstone, and whilst he was in ghost form, he turned into a vampire. This was an extremely rare event that Caleb hadn't seen happen before in a long time. It must have been because today was Halloween. It must have been the haunting spirit of Halloween Day that brought the ghost back to the real world. The friends had been waiting many hours when they finally saw that their friend Zeek Zombie's ghost had emerged from his tombstone. The friends were so happy to be reunited all together at last. Everyone watched on as Caleb gave birth in that very basement. Caleb gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. On Caleb's behalf, Fiona named the baby Peter Jr. From there, the group went ahead to stay in this cabin forever. Fiona and baby Peter Jr. went ahead and lived here for a very long time. She rented out the cabin for as long as she could. Meanwhile, her friends Willow, Zeek, and Peter went ahead and haunted this house for the rest of eternity. If you visit this house to this day, you will find either one or all three of these ghosts haunting this very cabin. Thank you guys for joining us for the Halloween special of 2018. I hope you have a very spooky Halloween and a very snazzy rest of your day, and I'll see you guys all soon. Bye guys!